Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I'm going to be giving you my top 10 favorite horror comedies of all time. Now, a little disclaimer here. I'm not going to get too in-depth about the review. I'm just going to tell you about the films and move on a little bit. I don't want to drag this out for too long. So, coming in at number 10, we have The Dead Don't Die. One of the weirdest films I've ever seen. Amazing cast. You got Bill Murray, Adam Driver, Chloe Sevigny, Tilda Swinton, Selena Gomez, Steve Buscemi, Danny Glover. Zombies attack a small town of Centerville, and the police force, which is Bill Murray, Adam Driver, and Chloe Sevigny, are trying to take care of the zombies, trying to get rid of them. Now, for me, this movie's a little bit too meta. I love meta comedy. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great. But Adam Driver keeps saying this isn't going to end well. And at the end of the movie, he says, I told you it wasn't going to end well. I read the script, and that's how I knew it wasn't going to end well. However, some jokes do land for me, like this bit.
What the hell was it? A wild animal? Of several wild animals?
What the heck was it? A wild animal? Several wild animals?
That's exactly what I said.
Was it a wild animal? Or several wild animals?
I laughed a lot during that bit. I thought that was pretty good. And then at the end, a UFO comes and takes Tilda Swinton away. A lot of this movie, if it wasn't for the third act of this movie, I think it would have been higher on this list. But due to that really weird and really weak third act, this movie fell all the way to number 10. I still like it a lot, but it did fall all the way to number 10. A lot of dry humor and some really awesome kills in the movie as well. So number 10 is The Dead Don't Die. And coming in at number 9, we have My Boyfriend's Back. More of a comedy than a horror comedy, but it's the story of Johnny. He's in love with Missy. He's been in love with her since they were little kids. In an attempt to win her over to try to get her to go to prom with him, he plans a fake robbery with his best friend, Eddie. Eddie comes in with a mask on. Johnny steps up to try to stop him. This is when he realizes it's not Eddie. It's somebody else that had taken Eddie's mask and is in there really going to rob the place. They pull a gun to shoot Missy, and Johnny jumps in front of him, and he ends up getting shot and killed. Before he dies, he asks Missy to go to the prom with him, and she says yes. Johnny comes back as a zombie to take Missy to the prom. He starts decomposing and finds out the only way that he can stay alive is to eat human flesh. At first, he's not into this. He's not into the idea of killing people. But the more he eats, the longer he stays alive. And then Chuck, who is played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, tries to kill Johnny because he is a zombie. And he takes an axe and gets himself in the head. And Johnny decides, well, since Chuck is already dead, I'm going to eat him so I have enough time to go to the prom. He goes to the prom with Missy, and he ends up dying during their dance. He finds out that he wasn't supposed to die when he goes to heaven. The killer was supposed to knock over a pot of coffee, and that was going to stop him from shooting Johnny. So in an attempt to make it right, they send him back to the night he was shot. He ends up winning Missy over, and they go to the prom together and dance at a happily ever after now that he has another chance at life. So that brings us to number 8, which is the newest addition on our list. It is Freaky. The story of the Blissfield Butcher, played by Vince Vaughn, who at the beginning of this film has one of the coolest kills I have ever seen in a movie. While I was watching this kill, it literally made me go, oh shit! We then get to meet Millie, who's played by Katherine Newton. She's kind of this timid high school girl. She lost her dad, and they kind of have a strained relationship in their family. Millie and the Butcher end up switching bodies when she's stabbed during a murder attempt when they're out of the football field. And the acting between Newton and Vaughn is absolutely phenomenal. They really make you believe, Katherine makes you believe Millie's character, Katherine's character, Millie, she makes you really believe that she is the Blissfield Butcher. And Vince Vaughn, ironically, plays a teenage girl really, really well. One of the funniest scenes in the whole movie, though, is when Vince Vaughn is in the backseat with Booker, the guy that Millie has a crush on. And it's so awkward and so funny, and I think it's one of the highest points in the whole movie. Another movie with a whole lot of awesome kills. There's some really gruesome kills in this movie. It really took it over the top, and the comedy is there too. The comedy lands, but there's also a lot of emotional between the Butcher, the body of the Butcher, Millie, and the mother, Millie's mom. When she's in the Butcher's body, there's a really nice moment between those two in a dressing room. That I thought was really good. This is a movie that is a lot of fun, and I really wish I could have experienced this in cinema. Thanks, COVID. So that's my number 8 would be Freaky. that will take us to our number 7, which would be Zombieland. In this movie, 2 months after the zombie apocalypse, a timid college kid that we only know as Columbus is making his way from Texas to Columbus to try to find his family. He's very by the book. He has a bunch of rules that you have to follow in a zombie apocalypse in order to survive. He runs into the overzealous Tallahassee, who's played by Woody Harrelson, and they end up riding together. Tallahassee is a zombie-killing machine. He has a Twinkie infatuation.
Where's the fucking Twinkies?
That's all he really wants now, is to find a Twinkie and to eat a Twinkie. They also do Zombie Kill of the Week, which is a lot of fun. My favorite is the piano drop. I think that was my favorite in the Zombie Kill of the Week. Throughout the movie, they end up running into these 2 girls, Little Rock and Wichita, which is Emma Stone and Abigail Breslin, which starts off a very rocky relationship between them, but Columbus has a crush on Wichita, so they end up sticking around a little bit. The 4 of them head off to Pacific Playland in California because they heard that that place is zombie-free, so that's where they're heading. When they get to Hollywood, though, they go to Bill Murray's mansion, which, again, is one of the best scenes in the world to me. I absolutely love the scene where Jesse Eisenberg, Columbus, kills Bill Murray.
You think you might pull through?
No.
Only Bill Murray could deliver a moment like this and make it so believable and so great. So I do love that. When they do make it to Pacific Playland, the girls leave them, and then the guys go off to try to save them. It's flooded with zombies. They end up saving them, and then this is where Columbus realizes he had a family the whole time. You know, it's kind of corny, I know, but it's a great movie. It's funny, it's scary, there's a lot of good kills. It's what you look for in a horror movie, but there's a lot of comedy sprinkled in. Woody Harrelson alone makes this movie amazing. So number 7 for me would be Zombieland. So coming in at number 6, we have Idle Hands. The movie starts with 2 people killed in their bedroom off-screen with the message, "I'm under the bed," written on the ceiling. Their lazy stoner son, Anton Tobias, played magnificently by Devon Sawa, hasn't noticed they've been gone for 7 days. He goes to make a sandwich. He realizes that the knife is covered in blood as he's taking it out, and he finds his parents' bodies and he freaks out. Penub and Mick, they come over. They're his 2 best friends, and they realize that Anton is the killer. They find out that Anton's hand is possessed. He kills Mick with a bottle to the head. He breaks the bottle, and then he stabs Mick in the head. And then he gets Penub by throwing a saw into his neck, decapitating him in a fun scene when it rolls down the stairs and hits the bottom. He buries him in the backyard, but they come back as zombies. Anton cuts his hand off and hopes it'll make things better, but it actually only makes things worse. The girl that Anton is totally in love with, totally has a crush on, her name's Molly. He's kind of talked to her a little bit here and there throughout the movie, but he's really awkward when he gets around her. He found her lyrics book, and he returned it to her, and his hand took him over there at one point and grabbed her ass in a totally awkward moment. But he goes to the dance to try to take Molly because the hand is going to take her soul to hell. They stop the hand by getting it high when it's inside of a puppet and killing it with a ritual knife. They throw it into the hand. Anton gets crushed by a car at this point. They were in the shop at the school. He goes to the hospital, and the movie ends with Penub and Mick as Anton's guardian angels. They leave him in the room in the hospital, and "I'm under the bed" is written on the ceiling, and Anton freaks out as Penub and Mick laugh as they're walking away. So another movie that's more comedy than horror, but it still definitely has its horror elements to it. So now my number 5, Tucker and Dale versus Evil. A movie that I think is completely underrated. This movie does not get talked about enough. A group of college kids are going camping in the woods, and 2 hillbillies, Tucker and Dale, just bought their first vacation home. They're going out there to fix it up. They pass each other on the highway, and Tucker and Dale are staring at them. These college kids think they're just weird hillbilly rednecks, and that they're trying to stalk them. This movie is the best example of a series of unfortunate events. One of the girls, Allison, they're all going swimming. She falls off the rock, and she gets hurt. Tucker and Dale rescue her, and her friends think that they're actually kidnapping her. Allie starts to realize that Tucker and Dale really are good guys when she's there, and like Dale brings her food and they're trying to take care of her. Eventually she falls in love with them. When the friends go to rescue her, they start dying in accidental ways, and it makes Tucker and Dale think that they're trying to sacrifice themselves for ritual sacrifice. And they are some of the coolest kills that I've ever seen in any movie. They really nailed it in this movie. But this movie is the perfect example of you can't judge a book by its cover either way. You can't look at someone and think they're a dumb redneck, and you can't look at someone and think they're a completely sane person. So this is a movie that would have been a little higher on the list if there was a little more horror to it. Another movie that's more comedy than horror, but the third act of this movie is so fun. And like I said, I love the kills in this movie. I think they're so great. So number 5 is Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Which this now brings us to number 4. And number 4 on my list is Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. I only chose one Evil Dead film for this, and I chose number 2 over Army of Darkness. The reason why is I think Army of Darkness has always been more of a sci-fi action comedy than a horror comedy. But Evil Dead 2, the continuation of Ash's fight against the Deadites, it's almost a reboot of the first one. They take a whole new direction in this movie, though, going from straight-up horror to a horror comedy and mixing it so well. You do have scary scenes.
Dead by dawn. 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 Dead by dawn.
Also, Linda's Deadite dancing and her head rolling. I think that's really scary. Then you get like Ash cutting off his own hand after it turns evil and the blood squirting all over his face. But you do have the comedy of the hand getting caught in the mouse trap and it giving him the bird after it gets caught, and the laughing and dancing in the cabin scene. This definitely takes horror comedy to the next level. So if I had to choose between Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness as the better horror comedy, I would go with Evil Dead 2. Army of Darkness is still, like I said, one of the most quotable movies that I've ever watched. I quote that movie all the time. But when it comes to being a strictly horror comedy, I have to go with Evil Dead 2 over Army of Darkness. So number 4, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. And number 3, probably the most controversial movie on this list, because nobody agrees it's a horror comedy. But to me, this is totally a horror comedy. Number 3, Who You Gonna Call? Ghostbusters. I always will maintain that this is a horror comedy. I mean, this librarian scene where she jumps up as they're trying to get her. And also, with this movie, the scene where Dana first gets taken, when you see the chair start moving and the hands come up and grabbing her face, and it pulls her back into the bedroom. Even the Slimer scene, like, that's another one that when I was a kid totally scared me, man. I think that was such a great scene. But it does have its comedy elements too, like the stair scene.
Hey, where these stairs go? They go up.
And in my top 3 for a reason, I love this movie. It's a movie that as a child I watched all the time. As an adult, I can still watch it and absolutely love it. And you tell me if the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was marching down your street and tearing things up, that you wouldn't be completely terrified. Because if you're telling me that you wouldn't be, I'm going to look you in the face and call you a liar. So coming in at number 3, one of the best horror comedies to me ever made, Ghostbusters. All right, so coming in at number 2, we have Shaun of the Dead. This movie has it all to me. It's funny, it's scary, it's smart, it's heartbreaking. I hold this film in very high regard, and I feel like I do for a good reason. Shaun and his girlfriend Liz break up after they're making dinner plans. Shaun forgets to make him a date, so he tries to get her to go to the Winchester with him. She's not down. She is not okay with it. That's not what she wants to do. So he goes to bed, and the next day they wake up and realize zombies have taken over the world. Him and his friend Ed, their roommates, they decide they're going to go get Liz and Shaun's mom Barbara and go back to their favorite pub, the Winchester, and they're going to
have a nice cold pint and wait for all this to blow over.
They also have a couple, David and Diane, and Shaun's stepfather Philip, that they can't stand Philip. They planned on killing him in the first place. They try to save him as well. Philip ends up dying. He was bit, and in the car he ends up dying. This is another emotional scene where, Shaun finally admits this was the closest thing to a father he's ever had. They end up making it to the Winchester, and this is where we find out that Barbara's been bitten as well. In a very, very strong scene where Barbara dies and Shaun's crying. This is a scene that I'll cry every time I watch this movie, And right after this, David tries to shoot her, which causes a big fight inside the bar. He ends up trying to shoot Shaun, but the gun's out of bullets, so Shaun punches him in the face. David tries to leave. This is where we see David and Diane killed. Another very graphic scene. Ed also gets bitten here at the climax. We think that Ed dies. Shaun and Liz leave. Later on, at the very end, we find out that everything's gone back to normal. Shaun goes out to the woodshed to play video games, and zombified Ed is out there, and they're playing video games together. And such a great movie. This is another one that I could watch over and over, repeated viewing. So that's why it's number 2, losing out to only what I feel is not only my favorite horror comedy, but one of the best horror movies to come out in the last 20 years, The Cabin in the Woods. I'm not going to spoil the whole plot of this movie for you, because of all the movies, I feel this is the one that you really should take the time to watch on your own. But it has the most unoriginal title for one of the most original movies, The Cabin in the Woods. You have a bunch of kids going out to a cabin. So cliche. But when you sit down and watch the movie, it explains so many horror tropes and why they happen, and you could believably see how every horror movie has ever happened. The horror they go through at the cabin is tremendous. They pick their own fate, which is a great twist on the movie. The bunker scenes are great. Sitterson and Hadley are amazing in this movie. They're so funny. When they're talking to Mordecai, this will always make me laugh.
Am I on speakerphone?
No, absolutely not. Speakerphone, no, I wouldn't do that.
Yes, I am. I can hear the echo. That's rude. I don't know who's in the room.
Fine, there. You're off.
I'm still on speakerphone, aren't I?
And I love the third act. Once they go down that elevator and you see all the monsters that are in the cubes, and oh my gosh, it's so scary. I love this movie. All the havoc that happens in the bunker when everything's going crazy and everybody's getting eaten and getting killed. It's so great. And you got a surprise appearance by Sigourney Weaver. So again, this is a movie I'm not going to tell you too much of. If you haven't seen The Cabin in the Woods, you really should see it because it's very smart. It's very funny, but it explains a whole lot. And now you hear the title Cabin in the Woods. You think it's going to be just your cliche horror movie, and it's actually the opposite. Very smart, very funny. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this list. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for more content like this. As always, guys, I'm Ken Sledge. Keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.